Record.
Getting to know you, having a good nose about you, having a gander, looking at what makes you tick.
Hello everyone, good evening and welcome back to Properganda. Yes, myself and Canning Town Len have come back for another series where we sit down with other West Ham fans and have a propaganda.
Yeah.
How you doing?
As requested by, I think it was Lincoln Paul.
Oh, was it?
Well, Paul Towers. I don't know if anyone knows him by that name.
Well, Lincoln Paul Taz, thank you very much. Paul T, I think I know him as. So.
Paul T.
Paul T.
Talking of Paul, look
Yeah.
at us link it up.
Oh, that's fantastic. You've done well there. You're like
I'm all
almost
right, yeah.
professional.
Such a professional.
Isn't it? This is going for a BAFTA, this one, I'm telling
Aye.
you. Yeah, or NAFTA, as we'd probably get. But we are joined by a published author and a West Ham blogger, and his name is Paul Brand, also known as Chester Hammer on Twitter. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
How you doing?
Oh, I won't go into
Yeah.
today. Yeah.
Let's
just get on.
Right, so the premise of the show is that we talk about you, yourself, and your relationship with West Ham, and we'll also plug a bit of your book. Now, for people interested, I'll quickly go. The book was called Fortune's Always Hiding. It's from Stratford to Seville, so it starts back in 2015 and goes up to date. And the one bit I'll read is: a football season ticket is one hell of a commitment. It's okay if you're guaranteed a good time, sexy football and 3 points a la Man City, but supporting a club of West Ham stature is a marriage of convenience.
Cool.
How's that marriage doing, Paul?
Oh, it's gone through better times. Bit of a rocky patch at the moment.
Yeah,
isn't it?
you're in the fucking spare room with this marriage already, mate.
I've got to take you all the way back to the beginning. In your book, you do outline, but I want you to tell us, what was it about West Ham that you thought, that's the team for me?
Well, I wish it was kind of like one of those light bulb moments, but it was simply conversation with my old man, who, as I mentioned in the book, he's actually a Fulham fan, so I've broken the family allegiance. But he moved over from South London to East London. I grew up in Upminster, which is West Ham territory, and he got me into football, took me over the local team playing Sunday League, and it was probably around about the age of 6, 7 maybe. Simply had the conversation, who's my local team? And as I outline in the book, he could have really stitched me up and said Hornchurch or Dagenham and Redbridge, or one of those others. And fair enough, I'd have probably followed that. But
You might have been happier.
I might have been, because there's a lot to be said for the community of those little clubs.
Absolutely.
But he said probably through gritted teeth, West Ham. And that was it then. Just in my head, it's like, okay, your local team is who you support, and that's who it's going to be.
Now,
He probably said it through gritted teeth, because he still claims that 1975 Cup final was the worst day of his life, I should say.
Yeah, probably.
And I can kind of relate to that after 2006.
right.
At least that unites us.
Yes. So what that brings me is obviously now we've got to divulge your age, which obviously if you're 6 or 7 now, obviously in the book you're born late 1980, so I'm guessing now you're 42 then.
Yep. I swear I apologise to everyone, but I do feel like I must be a bit of a jinx on West Ham, because obviously born late 80s, so I just missed the last major trophy. Started following, like I said, if I was 6 or 7, would have been probably the end of the '87 season, so I think I just missed our best league finish. And yeah,
Yeah, you did. You
we've
did come
never
at the
matched
wrong
it. I'm
time.
sorry. Yeah.
But I've always thought so. What are your first memories of West Ham? So you've missed. Obviously, you're not going to remember the cup because you was just still hanging around inside your mum. A coin of phrase.
Yeah.
Out your pop at the end of the year. We're still reigning FA Cup holders, though only to last another month before Wrexham knocked us out in 1981 January. If you didn't know that. You miss out 85, 86, as you say, which is West Ham's best ever year.
Yeah. I think this just kind of continues the idea of me being a jinx, because I reckon the time I came in was the dying days of John Lyall.
Yep.
Because one of the first things I remember is Lou Macari stepping in.
Right. Okay.
And it actually comes down to, we were out somewhere, and this is showing my age as well. Was he involved in the court case?
He was.
Yeah.
He was around that time. And yeah, we were out somewhere, and I remember that someone coming out of court, I don't even know where I was, somewhere in London, out for the day with my mum. And there was chatter going around that it was Lou Macari. I was like, oh, where? Don't think it was, quite frankly. But that's kind of lodged in there as one of my first memories. And then there's the early games. I think saw us play Swindon and Bristol City. So not exactly outings that would have grabbed a young impressionable mind, but I stuck with them anyway.
Can you remember what it was like the first time? See, obviously growing up in Upminster, it is your local team, but technically, I suppose I could class you still as an out of towner. You don't get to see the ground. What's it like when you see the ground when you go to a game? So who takes you to the game then? Your dad?
Yeah, it would have been my dad.
The Fulham fan takes his son, still choking on Alan Taylor.
Yeah.
And
Test the power of the child, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as I said, I think I got away with it because at that period in time, Fulham were languishing down in the bottom division. So it was, I think, painful for him to take me over there as well, which came later. He did try and turn me, but not for turning by that point. So yeah, I remember being kind of overawed, as I think most people are, little ones, going to a game for the first time, absolutely surrounded by the crowds. It all seemed, I think, coming from Upminster as well, that little walk down Green Street seems like another world, really.
Yeah, I'd imagine from Upminster it was still late 80s, early 90s. Upminster was still quite genteel.
Yeah, it's very much middle class to working class environment. So yeah, it's quite strange, overawed by it, but also kind of gripped by it as well.
Who were we playing at this day? Your first game? Do you remember?
Oh, like I say, I know that first season when I went to a couple, it was either Bristol City or Swindon. I can't remember which one would have come first. I just remember them as the first two. Don't know if I could tell you the score. I think we won the first one 1-0. So you could probably Google which one of them it was. Hazy memories showing my age.
What I mean, obviously you're reliant on your dad. Your dad not being a big West Ham fan, I doubt he was too keen to take you a lot.
I think he took me to the Swindon one because his mate was up from Swindon and supported them. So it was a jolly for him, probably.
So you're growing up as a West Ham fan. Now, when do you start going games regular at all on your own?
No, I point out in the book that I could never really afford to be a regular. I know we've pointed out Upminster's a very middle class area, but I was free school meals through my early teen years, and then I buggered off to Warwick for a few years. So I've always been an irregular, I have to say.
But at some point, you do move local to the ground.
Yeah, after graduating, so met the missus at at Warwick University, and managed to convince her, because she's a Liverpool lass, managed to get her down south. She was training to be a teacher, so it was a fairly easy argument, because I was trying to start a career in media at the time. So it was a case of, well, you can be a teacher anywhere. If I'm going to get a media job, I need to be down in London. So she moved down to where I was, and then we needed somewhere affordable, and that was one of the great things about East London at that time. It was affordable accommodation. So we started off the flats right behind West Ham Station. So,
What, the manor of buildings?
Jack Clow Road.
Oh right, yeah, I know Jack Clow
whatever
Road.
the other one is. Yeah, those flats there. And
I don't know if you know that. That's where the Kirbishleys lived.
all right.
That's in the 50s and 60s. That's where the
Right.
Kirbishley family came out of. Yeah, I'm trying to dress it up. Not the most salubrious part of Canning Town. It's one of the roughest, I would say, which is quite a statement.
Yeah, well, when it came to actually getting on the property ladder, again, this is this is tied into the Olympics. You might have thought this had put me off it, but we had a place in Stratford under offer, and being naive first-time buyers, when that offer was accepted, we appointed a solicitor and thought, that's it now, it's all going to go through. Having not heard anything for a few weeks, we got in touch and said, look, what's going on? What do we need to do? Solicitor chased a few things up and came back and said, it's fallen through, you've been gazumped. I was like, how does that happen after an offer's been accepted? What's going on there? Dodgy dealings. And in the meantime, they'd announced that East London would be hosting the 2012 Olympics.
Oh yes.
And when we when we went back, I was going to say when we went back on Rightmove, but it wouldn't have been Rightmove back then, would it? When we next looked in the estate agents' windows, everything around that Stratford area had gone up about £10,000 or £20,000.
Yeah.
So it was a case of, right, where else can we look? Around Newham, Tower Hamlets, and that's what took us to Canning Town, which was a little ex-council masonette on Edward Street, just off Barking Road.
Yeah, I know it.
And
Yeah.
did you work in the media, Paul, in the end, or
Not exactly.
no?
I fell into a job in music publishing, because music's always been a love of mine. And I was, just to be honest, came out of university, just did temp jobs for a year, just trying to get my foot in the door somewhere.
Yeah.
And eventually the door I got into was for the Performing Rights Society.
Right.
You look after the rights of songwriters.
Yeah.
So I started there in an admin job, and then progressed on to I worked as a licensing consultant on the TV side. So I used to account manage companies that they made, and basically anyone making something for Channel 4 had to negotiate the rights, and so I'd help them out with that. So not a bad job, other than the fact that my manager was a Millwall fan. Nice bloke, but it was a bit of a barrier to the relationship initially.
Did your wife, out of curiosity, this question, did your wife work in a school in Newham as well then?
Oh gosh, she worked at a few. She worked around a few Redbridge schools, I think was more her stomping ground.
She didn't fancy roughing it then.
Redbridge, I suppose, is in between
Yes.
Newham and Havering, isn't it? So,
Yes. Yeah. Right. So you're now immersed in the area. How does your match attending go? Is it still a struggle, or?
it's still a struggle, yeah, because mortgage comes first, unfortunately, which is annoying when literally walking distance from the ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, still very much reliant on TV for my West Ham fix.
When was the blog? When did you then move on to the? Because what came first? The book is basically from your blogging.
It's
your
the blog, yeah.
So when did you start thinking I'm going to start a blog?
That was basically when I moved up north. I didn't think anything would ever take me out of London, to be honest. I mean, university aside, took me out for a few years, but I always thought I'm a Londoner. There's no better city, is there? But after bringing the wife down to East London and subjecting her to some of the things around Canning Town, when it came to moving on to the next stage of life, starting a family, by which point I had myself retrained as a teacher. So that whole argument of, well, you can do that anywhere, can't you? That came back to bite me. And I had to concede that there were cheaper parts of the country where it would be better to bring up a family. So hence up we came to the northwest, and Chester was literally the only place we could agree on.
A rather nice part of the country. Having been to Chester, I'll tell you off air the day I went there and what I was doing. But yes, it's a big jump from Canning Town, Chester, I must admit.
You say that, but in terms of house prices, the sales price of our 2-bed ex-council maisonette, we bought a 4-bed terraced house for just a little bit more.
Wow. Okay,
So
that surprised me.
it's a different environment, but in terms of what you can get, then you know.
So now you're an expat from a distance.
I am, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what brought me to blogging. So, well, actually, that was one big life change. And then I suppose the other thing that prompted me to do it was having the time on my hands, which as a teacher, you genuinely don't have much time on your hands. But then I got having just moved up here and just started the family, I got knocked out of the profession by a motorcycle accident. So in recovery period from that was when I started blogging.
So with the book, Fortune's Always Hiding, you start with year 0, 2015-16. Is that when your blog starts in?
That's when I started blogging, yeah. It's literally, I mean, it's been edited with things taken out to condense it down to the publisher's word count. But yeah, that is the first entry was my starting point.
I mean, that sort of understands, because the bit on the first page was the Gerrard equaliser in injury time of 2006 FA Cup final remains the most painful moment of my life. And you qualify that saying, and I happen to need airlifting to hospital earlier this year. So obviously that was when your accident, it must have been a bad motorcycle accident then.
Yeah, I can't tell you I know anything about it, because I was literally blank for a week. I have no recollection of it. My last memory is walking out the door with my keys, having just said goodbye to the wife who was breastfeeding the little one upstairs in bed when I left.
At least you can't have nightmares about it, can you?
Yeah, no.
Gotta look on the bright side, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, you know me.
I mean, it was certainly life-changing, and I struggled to see the upside at the time.
Yeah.
But looking back, having got me out of teaching career into different things, allowed me to spend more time with the kids, and allowed me to get into writing, leading to the book, which I never thought was going to happen. So, and it's always look on the bright side of life, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Quote the Pythons.
So Nigel tells me from your book that he's reading that you were pro-move. So how does that happen? With you living so far away, why would you be pro-move? How do you sense a preference to move when you are so remote from the situation? Why would you? What was going through your mind at the time?
I guess
because I don't suppose you feel like you have much to lose.
Well, yeah, there is that element of detachment, isn't there? And I make the case in the book that I can't compare my experiences of West Ham with someone who'd been a season ticket holder for the previous however many years, they would be more as attached as I might have felt to Upton Park. I wouldn't have had the same level of attachment as someone who's been sat in the same seat every fortnight for who knows how long. So I guess the reasons for being pro-move would be the argument that was advanced at the time in terms of it will allow us as a club to progress and compete with the bigger boys. I think there was also an element of an attachment to the other part of East London. So I suppose it's a question of legacy and the changing face of the East End, because the whole Olympic argument was that we're going to take areas of great deprivation, such as Newham and Tower Hamlets, and we're going to bring this event to them, and you will see the ripple effect and how it improves the area.
And how do you feel about all of that now?
I suppose at the time, I thought, well, that's good. It's raising us to a new level. But of course, there are downsides of the whole gentrification process as well, aren't there? I mean, I'm looking forward to heading back home at Easter time. I'm going to take the boy and take him for a little tour along Barking Road, take him in the Boleyn and a bit further down. But I can guarantee his favourite part of it is probably going to be that Silvertown cable car. So it's a changing area, isn't it? Which, of course, traditionalists are going to have problems with that. And I totally understand those feelings. I think at the time living there, I saw an upside to East London being developed. And I think it's in the book somewhere. I talk about going for a run along the Greenway, which I used to do regularly. And I literally saw that stadium coming up, rising up out of the ground. And that always filled me with a sort of sense of pride as to this is the future, this is what's going to be. And I liked West Ham having a part of that. So I bought into the Olympic legacy. No denying that. And I think what's happened since is that the Olympic legacy has been rather trashed. In terms of the stadium now is a bit of a hodgepodge. It's an in-between. I will also kind of confess that I'm a big athletics fan. So my last few weeks in London, because I literally moved during the 2012 Olympics, and the last few days there was spent going to Olympic events, including the morning of Super Saturday in the stadium. And then my very last night in London was seeing Usain Bolt running in the stadium. And so I think I kind of developed that romantic attachment to it before West Ham had even moved in.
So you'd been to the stadium?
Yeah.
Well, and so I'd imagined that whetted your appetite. From my point of view, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
I was determined to not set foot in that stadium in athletics mode. I actually went to Olympic sport, but believe it or not, I went to Wembley to watch football. So I was determined to take part in the Olympic Games. You know, it was on my doorstep as such, but fun enough, I by that time I was firmly, obviously, entrenched in not going. But I do get, in a way, when they were bidding for the Olympics and they were proposing to have it in Stratford, and especially if you would have known the area of Stratford where they were building. It was the tip of London. You had
it was waste ground, wasn't it?
It was there was light industry, you could call it, but God knows what went on there. You had the huge fridge mountain, down Carpenter's Road, which was in it was like yards and lockups and warehouses and dumping ground, tyres dumped everywhere, rubbish, fly tipping, all the way round up to Hackney Wick Stadium where the dog track was that had been allowed to crumble. So and the thought of having the park or the Olympic Park as a green space, I thought was a great idea.
Yeah.
And the obviously, Paul, what took me about your book was because it was written how you felt on that day at that time, rather than it's not mystified in a way by looking back. Because when you look back, sometimes you might soften it, or you're writing it with your new perspective. Where here we get to see exactly what you were thinking at that time. So I've got another piece then. So with the owners, I did like this, I must admit. So we'll cover the owners, though I will say I did like this. So it's done like a diary. So and this headline's in defence of the Davids. Calm down, then. But this is what I liked. It says a porn peddler would, you might think, face some difficulty in passing a fit and proper person test. But this risible piece of legislation wouldn't bar Hitler, Stalin, Pol Pot or even Massimo Cellino from running a football club. He then says, however, I put it to you that Messrs Gold and Sullivan are in fact among the most fit and proper persons around today. Oh, Paul, I've stabbed you in the front.
Oh, but yeah, that was a little bit, yeah. Although,
So that was written, and this is where I do have to quantify it, people, before we think. So Paul's wrote this, we're still at Upton Park, a week before my birthday, on the 13th of November, 2015.
Must have been Friday the 13th.
I would argue that the Golds, the Gold and Sullivan were possibly at the height for their popularity at that time. How does it look now? So when Gold and Sullivan, I'll tell you, let's start again. 2010, Gold and Sullivan buy the club. What does Paul think? Because you do mention Massimo Cellino.
You know what? Yeah, and he was linked, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I reckon at that time I was probably pretty ambivalent, bar the fact that someone had come in and was going to save us from what looked like being a real financial mess.
God, you swallowed a lot, didn't you, Paul? Fucking hell.
What?
Get the disgorger. Blimey.
Are you claiming the Icelanders left us in a good state?
It was none of my business, really. But I mean,
I'm not
it wasn't exactly their fault. They couldn't help their country's economy collapsing.
No, I know, but it doesn't avoid the fact that we as a club...
It doesn't make them two any much more of a hero either, does it, really? I mean, the same could happen to us.
No, although, as we said there, Massimo Cellino could have been.
Yeah, but he didn't buy it.
He didn't, and where would we have?
Well, we didn't.
Where would we have been if we did?
I mean, you can be hypothetical as you want. He didn't buy it.
No, he didn't.
Sullivan and Gold bought it.
They did, and I
in Paul's defence, a lot of people. I'd always say a lot of people. To be honest, I wasn't disappointed.
No, I wasn't either.
When they took ownership of the club in January 2010, and then the next day, I was disappointed. Or the start of the disappointment happened when they did their press conference. So for at least 12 hours of their ownership, I was quite pleased. Look, hindsight's a wonderful thing. So,
but we don't have much of a say in anything, do we?
No,
well, we don't have any say.
I think I know that was written all those years ago, but I still find myself defending them, and I totally understand everyone's argument against them and what's happened since. But for one thing, all the talk of owners, I think, is symptomatic of modern football. where success is achieved in the boardroom as much as it is on the pitch. And I find that kind of dispiriting generally. I'd say there's only a few trophies to be won each season, and I think Gold and Sullivan's possibly biggest problem was making West Ham fans believe that they were going to be winners of trophies, which, you know, we all dream and we should be, or we should be competing. But the problem these days is with the big six and money being such a massive factor, it's so hard to actually reach those levels. And again, that was justification for the move, wasn't it? The idea that we would be able to compete better. I feel like that hasn't happened, but I don't know how much of that you can pin on the owners, because they've not always stuck their hand in their pockets as much as we'd have liked and when we would have liked. But we have bought players in who I never thought I'd see in my time supporting West Ham. Lucas Paquetá, Brazilian international. If you told me as a 10-year-old we'd be signing someone like that, I'd have been in seventh heaven, because at that point we were signing Paulo Futre, who could barely walk anymore.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from in that respect. You know, in a way, if I look at now, you know, the players we signed back when I was a kid to what we get now.
I mean, that's partly the success of the Premier League.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think that's more symptomatic of the Premier League and the money involved in football. And funny enough, one of my arguments against the move was that no, but you can't tell what happens in the future. You know, funny enough, one of the things I used to write about was that there may one day come a European Super League, and where will we be then?
Yeah, I know I'm out of sync with the bulk of the fan base on owners and stadium. So the book is very much a personal perspective.
Stand your ground.
Over this, I can't even remember where I was going with it. I'm thinking in the ground.
Well, look,
I think what I was going to say. Oh, speaking of books and things being retrospective, just before Christmas, I read "Bring Me the Head" of Trevor Brooking. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I've heard of the book. Remind me who wrote it, though.
It's,
Kurt Blows, wasn't it?
That's it.
Yes.
Kurt Blows and Ben Sherratt. And again, they couldn't see into the future, but that book kind of positions Gold and Sullivan as being the saviours. So it does take us then thinking, oh yeah, we're on the up. But by the same token, when you think about what's come before them and potentially what could come after, have we ever had owners that we actually like?
I'd say the Prats retrospectively, but a little bit before my time. But when you consider what they did,
it's that is tough to ask, because
I should perhaps qualify it by saying in my lifetime.
Yes, I think because it's West Ham's ownership was a bit vague. We always look at the chairman. So who was the chairman? So we'll go, the Kearns, Pratts, but they there were so many different shareholders back then of West Ham. They were just the ones that managed to control the voting of the shares. So it was a weird thing up until 2006 when West Ham was sold. You know, the weird thing about it was the Arnold Hills family still had more shares in West Ham than any other family. You know, we think Terry Brown as an owner, Terry Brown Terry Brown never owned more than, I think, 25% of West Ham. But what he did was he had the support of the shareholders that voted. So he had the support of the Kearns family, he had the support of the Hill family, and that kept him in power. So
I remember pondering, I think this is in the book somewhere, about the German model of
fan
the Bullet
ownership, yeah.
51 plus. And I think I optimistically suggest that Brown and Sullivan can't take it with them, and therefore might like to leave their shares to fans to create a new legacy. But then coming up here, Chester's a supporter-run club, and even in that situation, with the board made up of volunteers, they still get a load of grief from other fans. So I don't know if any model absolves us of all these issues.
Generally, the only fans that get on with the owners are the ones that win trophies, and as Man United has shown, that even is not a prerequisite. Apart from that, we can see now with Spurs, 20 years of Levy, what have we got to show for it? Well, you could argue a nicer stadium. They've definitely got a better stadium than West Ham's got. They've got a team that finishes in the Champions League, and gone of the days down Green Street when we used to sell T-shirts with Del Boy, Rodney and Grandad going, this time next year Spurs will be Champions League.
I joke about that in the opening chapter. And
yes, that's what I'm saying. It's quite it's so actually Spurs fans have progressed. Spurs as a club have progressed.
Yeah.
Under Levy, not as much perhaps, and perhaps their own expectation, reaching a Champions League final.
What do we make? I know we said you can't talk too much about hypothetical situations, but what do we make of the possibility that Spurs could have moved into the Olympic Stadium?
I don't think they ever wanted to be honest.
No?
I think they just didn't want us to. I think that was the idea of it.
Yeah.
Because we could never prove that.
I always feel like if that had actually happened and Spurs had moved into our patch on the owner's watch there, then that would have been a death knell for their ownership as well.
Well,
it'd have been fucking
I don't know,
great.
it would be typical of Levi, wouldn't it, if he was just playing us, because he does seem to be able to...
This is how I like to put it. If Spurs were in Stratford and we were still in Upton Park, I possibly could have been one of the most hated West Ham fans going.
On what basis?
On the basis
Well,
that
I mean,
I opposed the move.
Yeah, but,
and
I mean, it wouldn't have been on you. Would it?
No, but people would have. But in the fan base,
it would have manifested.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you look at how fans turn on other fans, they would have perhaps looked at me as so someone had to be right, someone had to be wrong, and I didn't know. I had a good inkling. I did do my own work, and that's why I was really concerned. Spurs, funny enough, going after the Olympic Stadium was the biggest kick in the bollocks what I was trying to do, because it then became about them and us. So the fans were generally split prior to Tottenham saying we'd like to go there. Once Tottenham made that public, it then became near enough 80% of West Ham fans want to go to Stratford. We can't have them. My argument was, not a lot of West Ham fans live in Stratford now. What the hell does it matter if every other week it's filled with Tottenham fans when we don't live there, so we ain't going to see them?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Right.
So if you get me drift, if we lived around Stratford or the surrounding area, and we were seeing these Tottenham fans turning up at a stadium local to us, we'd be upset. Well, actually, only the West Ham fans that lived in Stratford would be upset, and that is a very small minority now of fans.
Isn't the issue more a next generation one though? Of once they're on our turf, then and in that catchment area, then if they are able to deliver success,
well, there would always be
the next generation of supporter.
You would always have that worry. The fact is, West Ham, Orient, let's face it, they've not had real success. They've not been a big East London club probably since they were in Clapton, if we're being truthful. So East London's generally been West Ham's. Now, I would have thought it would have been funny if they'd have turned up in Stratford, Tottenham, because of the way they complain about Arsenal, they still call them Woolwich. So leaving North London would almost been akin to defeat. The only thing I said to Tottenham fans that complained was, Levy's going to build you that stadium. Now he'll either build it in Tottenham or Stratford. When you're sitting inside watching the football, you ain't going to know where you are, because that stadium will be the same stadium. So the only difference will be the journey. Well, guess what? You all got to make the journey, because none of you lot, like us, live around the ground. Tottenham fans don't live in Tottenham, and West Ham fans don't live in West Ham. So it's one of the great questions we'll never know the answer to.
Yeah, life is full of what ifs.
Yes,
it
it is, I suppose, isn't it? It's
I think that's my thinking as well in supporting still, to an extent, stadium and the owners. That is what is, and how can we make the best of it? So I'm all in favour of groups like the Ironworks Alliance, who, whether their members are big fans of the stadium, whether they wanted to move there or not, they're all about, okay, we're stuck with it, how can we improve it?
Knock it down.
Well,
it's easy to say make the most of it when you're not a regular going, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I get that. In terms of my early experiences in the stadium, they were generally quite positive ones.
So you went to the first game. Funny enough, on August the 4th, which was the anniversary of your first visit to the stadium, just 4 years later. So you say the last time I attended the inaugural match of a stadium was you went to the first match at Wembley in 2007.
Yeah,
let's get back to the West Ham bit. First impression on the stadium, I'm pleased to report far stronger, or perhaps I should say second impressions, because you've already been there. But there probably aren't many hammers through this construction already holds such a special place in your heart. I watched it slowly rise on the horizon as you ran on the Greenway, sewer bank, as I like to call it.
It's not that bad.
Well, that's what we called it as kids, Paul. So unfortunately,
Fair enough.
I'm pre-renaming of the Greenway. So you can always tell how old people are from the area by what they call it, because the younger people do call it the Greenway, while us old people know it as the sewer bank. And I used to live on the sewer bank was at the bottom of my garden. So for 15 years when I bought my first house. I'm trying to read something that don't want to stitch you up.
You sound like you're fucking struggling, to be honest.
He says, I left my roots behind 4 years ago, and although I'm constantly looking back, I don't have any regret, and I'm confident that the West Ham United of future will be equally unwavering.
Yeah, that wasn't right, was it? So
Jesus,
but you got to admit, this is, as I said, this was written on that day, the 4th of August. You've wrote this down. This is how you feel. You've come down from Chester to the first game. This is in the
book, right? So this book has been written sort of like as a diary.
No, well, it basically, yes,
so
it's from the blog. So he's not sat down and wrote it a year ago. This has been wrote over 6-7 years, from 2015 to today. So, and that's why that was the hook of the book for me.
Really?
It was because I'm not reading someone looking back and changing it to try and fit a narrative. It's as
like
it
Gold
was.
did with his own one.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but you know, it's.
It probably makes you angry in places. Probably gives you a laugh in
I'm
places.
never
and
gonna fucking
hopefully
find
there's a
out.
big-
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, that's why I had to warn you.
When was the
Yeah.
last time you went to London Stadium, Paul?
My last match was the Newcastle game last season.
How did that go?
It's 1-0.
Was it a draw? Yeah.
Pretty mediocre. And I'll
Now,
be
did
back-
you notice? I mean,
there was a clear drop off in my my feelings towards the stadium. I mean, I had reservations which are recorded in that first
Right.
impression,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
I was kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt. Like, it's hastily been moved from athletics mode. I didn't realise quite what a ball like that was going to be,
right.
and I thought that some of the aesthetic elements, which
Right.
I'm sure you're big on as an artist, I thought, oh, they're going to smooth them out and find fixes for them, aren't they? But evidently, all these years later, that's not the case.
So, regardless of how much they've said they've improved things or tried to, well, actually, they have said they've improved things. You now actually think the stadium's worse. Is that what you're saying, or your experience of
I'd say
it?
my impression of the stadium is worse now than it was initially, when I was perhaps caught up in an element of excitement,
Yeah,
first
of
game,
newness,
of newness, exactly.
optimism.
I will still defend it in certain respects. I mean, for one thing, the fact that I said I couldn't often afford to go when I was living locally in Canning Town. By the same token, it was bloody hard to ever get tickets because they either snapped up before going on general sale, and I'd have to spend, what was it, probably about 25 quid on the membership, subsidising my 2, 3, 4 games a season that I could afford to go to. So I know I'll be blasted as a casual because I wasn't there week in, week out, but that whole element of bigger capacity, getting more people in, I naturally saw as a positive. It does bring the tourists who get a load of flack. But similarly, going back to my dad's allegiance to Fulham, I always thought, well, you know what? If tourists want to come along and spend their money and help put money in the coffers for West Ham to develop and progress further, I've no issue with that. And the more of them we can bring along,
you weren't
and
there,
get
were you,
that
though?
next generation, the better. Like I said, going back to my dad's allegiance with Fulham, I saw a similar process when they had the
I was just going to ask you
rapid
about this.
progression
How
from
d- how
Mohamed
does-
Al Fayed.
How do you? So Fulham had to move out to QPR's grand share. It looked like they were going to lose Craven Cottage, but they managed to keep it. How do you now? Pray to ask, is your dad still around?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good,
I mean,
right.
How
does
he's
he-
back as a regular now.
Yeah,
He's a
so-
season ticket holder at Craven Cottage.
Right.
Wow.
How would he view? And this is what I'm interested in as well. Because Fulham, and funny enough, I'm working across the road to Fulham Football Ground tomorrow, literally across the road to it in the school. So how does he view that? The fact that he still gets to go to Craven Cottage, is it something you think? Imagine if Fulham weren't at Craven Cottage, because Craven Cottage is a very nostalgic ground with the cottage still in the middle,
It is, yeah.
with that old stand that sort of and as you look along the road there, I think it's a fantastic facade myself.
It is,
The
yeah.
red brickwork.
It's quite special.
Yeah, I do. I took a few photographs. I do a lot of work in Hammersmith and Fulham, and I find
There's
myself down there a lot.
another book out about the I can't remember what the exact title was. The world's greatest. It's not the world's greatest.
Yeah.
But, it's like a photographic book with a little bit of history beside it of the world's most. Can't think what it is.
Atmospheric ground, is it?
No, it's not atmospheric.
Oh,
It's that whole idea of having something special about them. But Craven Cottage popped up in there, so it's like, right.
So
that's
how would
Christmas
I
present
mean,
sorted.
does your dad? Have you ever spoke to your dad about how would he feel if Fulham weren't at Craven Cottage, or do you look now and think actually West Ham did lose something?
We did lose something, and I understand that loss of identification and community. I think my response to that would be when fans refer to the new stadium as a soulless bowl. Although I can see all the problems with it and the issues, I think surely the fans are the soul of a club. And as long as there are fans within it, then we are the ones providing the soul. I know the certain elements of the stadium are perhaps not as conducive to that, but I would also contest that when you have the atmospheres which I've not experienced in person, but a bit like the last game at Upton Park, when it's really good, it does literally seep through the TV. And we've had that in some of the European nights. And I suppose that is what they said the stadium was built for. We need a few more of them to really generate those memories and that attachment to it. And there's certainly improvements that could be made to the stadium, which, as the ownership situation develops, now they don't have to pay that tax penalty anymore on the sale of the club. I'm hoping still that certainly no one's going to look back and say fans were unwavering in their opinions on the stadium, but I'm hoping it is one that can still be fixed, and come 100 years into the future, there'll be a generation, well, many generations of fans who will look back on it with a lot more fondness than we do at present. I'm stretching there, aren't I?
Yeah, a bit.
Yeah.
The only thing is, again, not to defend you, but I do remember. I remember that game, the 4th of August, 2016. It was my mum's birthday, and I celebrated it by going to the game. I wrote an article on Carrot and You the next day.
It was a weird one, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I wrote an article on Carrot and You the next day, basically rubbishing the stadium and my experience. And it was always going to be that way, though, naturally, after what I'd gone through in the previous 6 years.
In that respect, we were coming at it from a totally different angles.
Yes. Now, what had happened then is that I got so much grief from that article that night. It was one of them. It was posted near enough in every West Ham fan page on Facebook that I was a member of, and I remember because I left half of them because what people were saying about me was frankly, I mean, the one I really answered was the bloke which my mate did laugh at. He said the only one you answered was the bloke who accused you of voting Remain. I bet he's a Remainer, the bloke went, and I actually piped up and went, I'm a Brexiteer actually, I'm proud of it. And it was like, you can call me anything you like, but don't ever call me, I think,
again, this is one of the big issues with the stadium, isn't it? It's become a lightning rod for toxicity, and it's split the fan base.
But it was funny how my big thing was always that when people see it with their own eyes, they'll see what I saw off the drawings. And to be fair, after that first game, a lot of people were quite happy. But it didn't take long for it to go sour, though.
Have you read Mark Noble's autobiography?
Funny enough, that I got both books at the same time, but it was your book that gripped me, Paul.
Something then.
so yes. So and what I thought, actually, I'll get you in when we do this. That's why I thought, I want to get and speak to Paul.
He's very sketchy, to be honest. It's not the most insightful of autobiographies, but he kind of...
It was pre-Harvard, I believe.
He kind of talks about first impressions being okay and it all falling to pot in that first season. I had a conversation with a fan recently where he was saying if you could switch the last season at Upton Park with the first season at the London Stadium, would that make a big difference to people's feelings about the places?
That is a good question.
It's another one of those what ifs, isn't
Yeah,
it?
because when I used to write in Overland Sea, I used to write that the two biggest seasons in West Ham's history will be the last at Upton Park and the first in the stadium. Get them wrong, it will crumble. Now, the 2015-16 season is in my top 3 ever, which, considering it's the last,
Yeah.
I look back and think if ever there was a fitting way to say goodbye, it was that.
Yeah.
Um,
Probably best ever season,
yeah,
in my opinion.
You never got to stand on the pitch and sing "We're going to win the league" and actually believe it.
Yeah.
Even though that was over 4 days later. But so yeah, I can see that point of view. Actually, I can see that. I can understand that point of view because, frankly, you turned up as the club in at the doldrums.
Yeah.
But they got the first season wrong, and they've predominantly got it wrong.
Looking at it from a distance, were you a season ticket holder in that first season?
I've been a season ticket holder, near enough all my life.
It seemed to me that things went wrong, which I think might have been our second league game there. That Watford match, we were 2-0 up.
Yes,
we lost 4-2.
Yeah,
Oh,
the Payet Rabona cross.
Yeah,
Yes,
it was all looking so good,
yes.
and then it all went so horribly wrong, and that was reflected in the stands as well, where it seemed people started fighting and.
Yeah, that's a good point actually, because it did. You know, with the move, the first fights were with West Ham. I always remember there was a fight at the West Ham Bournemouth game outside between West Ham and Bournemouth fans, and you think, really, what Bournemouth? Yeah, it was just a small video, and obviously they hadn't got the idea of segregation. They thought everybody could just mingle, and
there was a lot of fights in the European game.
Yes. Yeah. And there was a lot of fighting between people standing up and people sitting down.
Again, it's one of my hopes for the stadium that as a country we're going to bring in safe standing, and that might lead to a few improvements.
Right, so we'll jump forward then to how does your son, because you take your son now, didn't you, when you go?
Took him to his first game was Brentford.
Right, yeah.
Oh,
that was his first game, was it?
That was his first game.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
I don't think he's any great rush to go back, to be honest.
Was that because
the legacy's working well then, isn't it?
No, he's not showing any interest in football, to be honest. Apparently it makes me angry, and that's turning him off, which I get that.
Yes, it's I've got a son who don't like football, Paul. I get the best thing to do is to let them go their own way.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we were allowed to do as such. Your dad let you go your own way.
He let me go from Fulham to West Ham, and you know what? I'd rather he has no interest in football than follows Man United.
Yes, yeah. Take him Chester or something, perhaps. Or
yeah.
I would say persevere with him. I persevered with my daughter till she was at least 15. She had to go. But it seems wasted now.
To be honest, I think the daughter's probably a better bet than the son now. Anyway, she's got more of a kick on her. So although she copies him in saying, "No, I don't like football. It makes Daddy angry."
All right, okay.
But still young, so I'm not giving up hope yet. Same as with West Ham, same with children. I'm not giving up hope.
I mean, as the book went on, I think it does, and this is the thing. I've been a bit harsh from you. Obviously, I hope you don't think I've stitched you up. It was just obviously the early bit. As you get on, we can sense your mood change, and that's the thing. You know, I wouldn't say you sort of sit on the same side of the fence as me and Len, but you then start to see some of the limitations, perhaps.
I think what I would hope people can say is that I tried to see both sides. And
Yes.
obviously I lean more one way than the other at different times. But even in praising the stadium move initially, I could see the problems with it. I don't know how clearly that comes through in the book because it's a long time since I've actually read through it myself.
No, I think as it goes on, what I quite like is the I don't know, not the headlines, but we get beat by Newcastle. Hello, disaster, my old friend. Following a 3-2 defeat.
Classic West Ham, wasn't it? It was basically things are looking good. To be honest, we touched on this in the last season at Upton Park as well, didn't we? In that we flirted with those Champions League spaces. It looked like it might be a possibility, and then it was like, oh well, Europa League, here we come. We nearly cut that up with the penultimate game there against Swansea. In the same way that if you switched the first season at the London Stadium with the last one at the Boleyn, if you switched the Swansea game with the Man United game, and that one had been the final one, it wouldn't have been the same send-off, would it?
No, it's quite funny because West Ham were a bit blindsided by the Man United game being moved, and I was on the farewell to Boleyn committee, believe it or not, on the SAB, and I remember bringing this up to them. You do know that there's a problem because obviously everything was focused on the Swansea game. and I remember mentioning this group, there's a problem, and they're like, what's that? It's, we've drawn Man United in the 6th round of the FA Cup, so one of us will be in the semi-final. We won't play our league game because our league game was due to be played on the weekend of the semi-final. So that game ain't going to take place.
That's fortune actually smiling on us, isn't it? Because you couldn't have asked for better opponents and under the floodlights.
I totally agree with you there, Paul. I just think the Man United, if you look at the last 3 games, we're actually, if we'd have won, I think if we'd have drawn 2 and won 1, we'd have got Champions League football. It was that close.
God, really?
It was. If we'd have beat Swansea and Stoke, but if we'd have beat Swansea and Stoke, we'd have been in the Champions League and beat Man United. But actually, if ever there was a West Ham way, it's that week. Yeah. Should have been the last game ever. Smashed 4-1. Andre Ayew scores that trick, who we end up buying just to finally. I don't know why, but anyway. Then you get the Man United game and everything that surrounded that. It was probably the greatest send off I could have wished for in a way. Right, let's bit of light relief, Paul. A few questions. You got any questions for him in regards to anything, Jay?
Well, just the making of the book, really. You kind of a little bit covered it, but when you've completed a book, do you have to sort of read through it again yourself? I'm just trying to think. The couple of films that I've made, West Ham films.
Yeah.
Is that what you need to do, or because you said it like it's come from your blog? So yeah. I'm wondering if you went from the beginning and read it, and you thought of changing things, or you were quite resistant to changing things. What was the process?
Because the whole idea was that it was contemporaneous, that it was as it happened, and they were the thoughts and feelings then. So it is diary-like. I think that's said on the blurb on the back, that it's like Diary of a West Ham fan. So no, nothing was changed. It was simply a case of I was set a word count by the publishers, so I just stripped all the all the entries out of the blog and just took out the ones that added the least, that didn't kind of work in the narrative, which was all about, I guess, leaving one home, trying to build another. And that's where my kind of personal life intersected with it as well.
And,
So it was read back, but nothing changed.
and now it's all done and published. Is there things that you'd have done differently? Any regrets or is it just?
No, I always knew that some of the opinions in there set me up for conflict with other parts of the fan base. I was kind of prepared for that, so doing this tonight is good because it's getting it out there. But I'd always say as well, as a West Ham family, families don't always get on, but we've got more in common than that which divides us, I guess.
Yeah.
So no, nothing that I'd change because it is what it is, and it's out there for others to take and read and relive it.
And would you make another book? Are you already thinking that far ahead, or is you still waiting for the response from it all? Or...
I've already pitched another one to them, which is football music mixtape. So the stories behind the songs that we sing. Obviously, that's football generally rather than West Ham specific.
Right.
But haven't actually had a response from the publishers on that one yet, other than I'll let you know. So I guess it's wait and see how this one goes.
Right.
But I've got other things that I would like to write about in future. Having got knocked out of the teaching profession, I do now write for a living, but it's writing revision guides and educational resources. So as I put in my Amazon bio, I'd rather be writing about important stuff like football, music and film. But unfortunately, it's the educational stuff that pays the bills at the moment. But at the same time, I do have a bit more free time to follow those other interests.
Look, I'll do if you want to write your own article about your book. I'd be happy to publish it on the website and give it a punt.
Cheers, thank you.
So, yeah, and as you are a teacher and a writer, I won't even need to check it. Mark your spellings.
That is part of my day job. I'm an editor as well. So
good. I'll send you some of Sean's stuff. You can have a look through that and laugh. Right.
Do you think there's a time that you won't want to write then, Paul? Now it's your job. Do you think as it is your job, do you think yourself will you start feeling like work?
No,
because it does for me.
Compartmentalised, I think, because I still think of the day job as much more teaching related because it's all educational resources, and so what I do in the evening or spare time is writing about what I want to write, and that might be, football related. It's the blog still. It might be. I'm a frustrated filmmaker, so screenplays as well.
I'm a frustrated filmmaker, mate, as Nigel can.
There's a lot of us out there.
You can be successful and fucking frustrated, can't you, Nigel?
Your frustrations are a lot different.
Now.
Right,
you want to know how fucking private these frustrations are.
Yes. You want to make a film, book. Paul? He's made films. Yeah. I think there's your answer. Perhaps I don't know who's better off. Actually, there you go. All right, Paul. I'll some quick fire stuff. So, who's your favourite player?
Current or all time?
All time.
Julian Dix.
Julian Dix.
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, Terminator, wasn't he? He was actually a beautiful player in terms of some of the passing. Julian Dix long ball, it's a thing of beauty, as was the Julian Dix penalty.
Long pass, I've called it.
As was the Julian Dix tackle.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And obviously as well, someone that you would have watched as a kid rather than as a. Well, I think I'm the same age. I think he's the same age as me. Um, he must have been 17, 18 when he joined us. He was young.
Dixie came from Birmingham, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Birmingham City. I think he
And
was
he's
17,
also
18.
got a book coming out later this year, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah,
So that should be an interesting read.
yeah. Because Kirk Blows wrote his first book. Wrote his original
Mm,
biography, The Terminator. That was
yeah,
Kirk Blows.
yeah.
Is there one game that you could watch over and over again? I've got
Um, it would probably be that Man United game.
yeah, in 2016, the last night at the Upton Park.
Yeah, it'd have to be really. Is there a DVD copy of it? I've got the season review, but
I think there might be.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you can watch it on YouTube. To be fair, I
oh
think
yeah,
Yeah,
I think West Ham put it on
yeah, I
on
think
on
they did.
on YouTube.
I had to buy the Liverpool
Cup
release
final.
of the cup final because I thought eventually I was ready to watch it again. I still haven't.
Jesus, what the fuck? He goes
See,
through
no,
your rep.
no. See, now, and this is the thing. If you listen to our podcast, we will go off on a tangent. I watched that when it's shown, and I do it with immense pride. I was there that day. I did see it, but the performance was absolutely outstanding.
I feel like it went by in a blur, so that's why I want to watch it back at some point. But it's just I've still not managed to bring myself to actually do so.
Yeah, the day went. It's mad because I got to Cardiff early, and the day went really quick. So I think I was on a train at about 9 o'clock. I think I got the 9 o'clock train out of Paddington, and I didn't get back to Paddington until 10:30 at night. But I just think that I do see that a lot. Obviously, I think it's the disappointment of being in typical West Ham fan. We literally were touching it.
Literally, the moment at which I thought, and again, this is me being a bloody jinx, it was only on 90 odd minutes. So I actually thought, we're going to do this. We're
I didn't
actually
even.
going to
I
fucking
didn't
do
even let
it.
myself
Yeah.
think it then.
And it was partly to do with the fact that Gerrard was limping around in the middle of the pitch.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just sod's law, isn't
Well,
it?
I've told this before, but I tell you, it's my nephew's 15th birthday that day, and he came with me to every game at that time. So I was inflicting my pain onto him. And funny enough, he lives in Bury now, up your way. But it was his 15th birthday, and when we went 2-0 up, I looked at him and went, this is going to go wrong, didn't you? Yeah. And then I just sat there going, no, this ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen.
I mean, that Konchesky goal
Yeah.
made me think, is it our day? Is it going to happen?
Well,
I don't really believe
I
it.
never thought it until they held the ball up and it said 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And I turned to my left. I can still see it now. The Liverpool fans were to my right. They were beat. They were down. They were all sitting down. And I looked at him and went, Bill, we're going to do it. And as I looked back, I didn't see what had gone on. I just looked back as Gerrard just thumped the ball. And my nephew just looked at me and went, what the fucking hell did you say that for?
So it was you that jinxed us on that.
Well,
day,
it was one of them where you
I'm
think,
sure there were a few of
I
us
think
that
there was a
had
lot of
exact same
people
thoughts.
that sat there the whole time thinking, nah, ain't going to happen, ain't going to. And just when you allow yourself, it's going to happen. Well, I think this year will be different. What do you think this year, quickly, Paul? What do you think of this season? Where are, dare you take it on? Where are you on boys?
He had credit in the bank. I think he's into his overdraft now, isn't he? It's a bit like the stadium. He's in place. We're stuck with him until the end of the season. My dream would be that we stay up, obviously, and win that European trophy.
Mm-hmm.
I think, God, how can you sack someone based on that? It would seem so harsh. And it also doesn't feel like the West Ham way to do that. Because, we start with John Lyall through relegations. So if someone survived relegation, won a trophy, and still got sacked, then that's tough. But he's not got the fans on side in terms of the football being played. And I don't think winning a trophy and staying up is going to get them on side. And also in terms of that classic thing of, well, how do we progress from here? Having another season going into European football with, I was going to say with the current squad, minus, I expect, Declan Rice, but with a sizable transfer kitty, it's about as attractive as the West Ham job is ever going to appear. So it would be nice if we could find someone who's going to, I'd say, deliver success and entertainment. That's just being greedy, though, isn't it?
That's the holy grail.
It is. I think at the moment we'd go back to, as long as we're being entertained, then that is probably the most important thing, I think, to most West Ham fans right now.
Right, okay. That was well answered, Paul. Oh, should we do some questions,
please?
Because believe it or not, this is perhaps it was the way I worded it. We've only got 8, so you might as well hang around, Paul.
Yeah.
Normally we have about 30.
Yeah.
So,
but like you said, Paul, you are a bit of a jinx.
Yeah. I'm not much of an attraction as well.
Dear. Don't let him drag you down, Paul. Don't let him drag you down.
I was offering myself to Newham bookshops, and do you want an author event? Do you want me to come in to say anything, literally anything I can do? Radio silence from them.
Really? What, from Newham Bookstore?
From Newham Bookshop. And I did finally get back because
they read it.
Johnny, we mentioned earlier beforehand, said did they have copies in stock because he liked to support them. So I followed them up just to say, did you actually get this earlier email? And also, have you got any copies that my friend can order? And they got back to me to say, yeah, they had copies in stock. But they obviously don't want me as an author.
They keep away. Did they read the book? Did you send them the book? How does it work?
No,
I mean...
You're asking the wrong person because I still don't really know how the stockists work. I've not had
right, so it's the publisher that takes control of all that, right?
Yeah, they would be doing all the supply.
So can't you... Do they give you any books to sort of do your own bit of PR for it?
I got 10 author copies, which mostly went to friends and family.
Right.
Yeah. But although, I literally couldn't even give them away. I had one for...
Would it be worth taking some time out to find a new publisher? Or, I mean, I've got a fucking ukulele today. I mean, 10 books.
10 books. Well, I guess the argument is it eats into your royalties, and even they are not particularly high, I don't believe. But it's what comes of being a first-time author. You take what you can get.
Actually, just in case anyone is thinking of writing a book. So what is the process? Did you contact Pitch Publishing in what
Yeah, I mean, from having looked into book publishing before, a lot of publishers don't even accept direct submissions. You have to get an agent first. So agents are as big in the world of publishing as they are in the world of football.
Right.
So Pitch Publishing was welcome in terms of the fact that they accepted submissions from whoever. And I only came across them really because I picked a few of the books off my bookshelf to think, right, who shall I send this to? So I never really had the idea of turning the blog into a book. It wasn't something that was ever planned as such. It was just that as that European season went on, it was kind of like, hang on, there's a narrative shaping here, and it's either leading us to an actual trophy for the first time in my lifetime, or it's going to be the classic West Ham nearly story. But either way, I was lucky to start blogging in that final season at Upton Park, and here I've got something that we've led to. So I kind of prepared the two pitches, and unfortunately, it was the nearly one of Fortune's Always Hiding. So the morning after the Eintracht Frankfurt game, I roused myself to send it off, and they actually got back to me pretty quickly and said, "Yeah, we'll have that."
Would you consider doing self-publishing it next time, or?
I've looked into self-publishing before when I was writing some children's stories, and to be honest, I think it's probably more feasible now because the whole publishing industry is dominated by Amazon and SEO.
Yeah.
And the fact that I've got a vague idea of how SEO works now from my day job, I feel like that's something that's doable. But it's also having the cash up front to get the print done. And I've not got a hell of a lot of money in the bank.
No.
So it's the same old thing. I'd probably rather have a season ticket, but I was never able to afford one of them.
But
either.
you are, I mean, you are a professional author, so should you have the bit, should you start thinking of that really? Because otherwise you're always going to be as someone else's, going to serve a master, aren't you?
Yeah, now I'm learning a little bit more. It's something that I would consider in future. I suppose it's dependent on this first royalty check that comes through and whether or not that would give me enough to print off a follow-up. But
yeah,
we will see. What will be, will be.
Yeah.
But I'll keep on writing. And
well, you're going to have to if it's your job, Paul, aren't you?
Well, the blog's still going.
I compartmentalise that. I don't think it'll be a day job as writing as such. I still think that as teaching, really. But I mean, this whole thing, it's come out of nowhere. It's a passion
Labour
project.
of love.
Yeah, the blog was just something I do for the love of writing and love of the club. So the fact that it's turned into a book, that's just a bonus.
All right. Okay. Questions. So the first up, we've got Father Chris Kinch.
Hooray!
Big listener and big friend of the show. He says, do you have a favourite memory from all your years of being a West Ham fan? It does give it. He said, mine was the first time I visited the bowling ground. Seeing so many West Ham fans, I felt like I was part of something bigger. You are, Chris.
Yeah.
You're definitely part of something bigger. I knew it was a very special place. Len, what is your favourite memory? You got a favourite?
Well, my favourite memory is Sunday the 11th of May, going down there with a couple of Raiders, I mentioned the other week, really.
Right, yeah.
Of course, my first game never got relegated.
Yes.
We're all jinxes.
Well, that was my first season. I did actually see us win some games that season.
The funny thing is, I think that was we won 7 from 9, and I'd only sort of become aware, really, that I was a West Ham fan that Easter, and I thought we were the best team in the world, but judging by the results, and David Cross was like the new Pele.
Yeah.
And I turned up my first game, and we played the mighty Liverpool, lost, and I realised we got relegated, which took some understanding as a 6-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, a big one I remember was Pop Robson got a couple against Derby. We beat them 3-0. I think that was around Easter time, and we'd beat Birmingham as well. I did about half the games that season. For a reason, we got our season tickets, but only did half the games with my uncle. I was perhaps a bit young, but I think I see about 3 or 4 wins. Man City springs to mind, but we might have lost that one. I think that was the first game I went to. Man City. That would have been early in the season. Well, look, my special memory, I was the mascot when I think nothing will beat that. Paul,
Um,
special memory.
I think it is probably the morning of the cup final, and just having a little stroll along Barking Road, and the fact that all the I think we've established that you don't actually get that many West Ham fans in the local area now,
No,
but they all came out on that day. There were flags everywhere. All the shops had got bunting and banners up, and so it was the first time of being in the cup final for me, and it was the peak of excitement. No, it wasn't the peak of excitement, was it? That was around the 90th minute. What happened then? But no, it felt very special on that morning.
Yeah. Funny enough, the evening before, I had done the delivery in Dagenham, and the door had like the counter blue bank there. Wasn't expecting to see it at all, and it was very special. All that it sunk in that afternoon. I tell you, I had to deliver my own stuff.
yes, Edward Street. I think I grew up, Paul, 1 minute away from there.
Oh yeah.
So as you come out of Edward Street, you would have known it as New Haven Lane. When I was a kid, it was part of Star Lane.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah,
turn
Star Lane.
left
Opposite, isn't it? Yeah.
up past the green, that's where I grew up, just round the corner from the green.
Oh yeah. Had a weird experience after the again, it's a chapter from the book that after the last game at Upton Park, I went back for the final score filming, and that was a night sheet. And when it finished, I took a walk back down Barking Road and went past what would have been your old house, and it looked like somebody had randomly driven a digger onto that little patch of grass.
All right, yeah.
It's like the things you see in Canning Town.
Oh yeah.
There's no sign of any building work or anything.
No.
It looked like someone had joyridden it into that spot.
Yeah, I don't know if it used to go on when you lived there, but when we were kids, that was where we had our bonfire every year. So, but yeah, and I think I used to deliver milk in Edward Street. If Edward Street's a dead end, am I right? It's behind.
No, it's kind of hidden away.
I don't know if it was a pub, but it was called the Raffles when I was a kid. It's a block of flats on the corner of New Haven Lane.
I can't remember what it was called now.
It's a block of flats now, but it was a pub that was called the Raffles.
I was going to say to help you locate it, it's behind the chicken shop, but that doesn't really narrow it down, does it anymore?
No. So, I've lost the questions. Where have I gone?
Oh,
What did I do there? Hold up. That was not good. What happened now? Right, here we go.
right.
Back. Sorry about that, people. Right. Right. A different question, but sort of. Ian Gravitt, who's a big fan of the show, says, "Evening, gents." Top fan, I should say. Says, "What were your hopes at the beginning of your support for West Ham United?" Hopes at the beginning. Can you have hopes when you're a kid?
No. You just
You just go with it, don't you?
Yeah.
yeah, you just watch it all pan out.
Yeah.
I suppose my hope for most of my early seasons was staying up or being promoted, because it was a bit of a yo-yo period.
I can't pretend I actually cared. First of all,
No, it was. I always think the beauty of watching football as a kid is you have no compunction of what relegation is.
No.
So you got no fear of it. And so if you lose and if your team's bottom of the table, you might be disappointed or whatever, but you don't really care. You go to every game still thinking you're going to win.
I don't recall even looking much at the table when I was a kid either.
Oh, didn't you do your league ladders?
No.
I used to fill that in all the time. Move West Ham down,
We're talking about the ones that came with Sheep magazine.
Shoot magazine. Yeah. I've got a set. Someone actually made a set for 21-22 season, and I actually bought them. And I've kept it. So it's a pity he didn't carry on making them, because I probably still would have done it. Off piece a little bit anyway. Matty Kemp, Spandau Ballet Roadie. Evening, gents, he says. I'm fed up with computer generated predictions, ain't we all, Matt?
Yeah.
Nostradamus, ifs and buts and maybes.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts? Staying up or going down? Len, staying up?
I've always felt like we'd stay up. That's
Yeah.
just a feeling. Although, if I think about it, the more I think about it, the more I think that we could go down. But I just feel like we're not.
Yeah.
I know it's really illogical. Because
I can relate to that. I get that feeling that I just, without any real reasoning behind it, I feel like we're good enough to stay up. But we've fucked with that before, haven't we? Which
I was
is
about to say, it's the 5
scares me at the
relegations that
same
we have
time.
had.
It would be just typical of West Ham, wouldn't it? That after the team containing Joe Cole, Glenn Johnson, Michael Carrick, David James, they get relegated. Best side ever, in popular opinion, to get relegated. And we'll follow that up with an England international, Brazilian international, an Italian international, German international. What should be too good to go down is almost what scares me.
To be fair though, Italy are shit at the moment. The Brazilians weren't all that, and it's the worst German team ever.
Weren't they? So, yeah.
I may be talking us down, but funny enough, I don't, listen, Italy had just been beat by England in Italy. That's how good they are. And he only got 3 minutes and still couldn't touch the ball.
Yeah. I should have said Moroccan international, because they beat Brazil in the week as well.
Well, yes, that would be a big loss to us if we lost him. But I suppose we're all hopeful, Matt, staying up. Next up, it's good old Adam Leatherbarrow with a more up to date question that could be a bit contentious. Keep up the good works, he says. As Nigel is aware, because I've been debating with him on Twitter, there's been a lot of debate on the stadium this week. There always is, Ad. When we ain't got a game, this is what happens in West Ham Twitter world. We don't play for 2 weeks. What can we argue about? The stadium. Let's go. But he would be interested in hear our views on whether an expansion at the Bowling Ground was enough. Whether the London Stadium was a good move financially, and how do you see conversion of the London Stadium work? So, let's answer one each. So, Paul, I'm going to give you, would expansion at Bowling Ground, if the Bowling Ground got finished in 2004 as it should have been,
that was plans for what?
Up to 44,000. 44,000. Would that have been enough?
Not for Paul.
It count as enough, doesn't it? I mean, it would have been more bums on seats. I don't know how many.
All right, let me put this in another way. Is the extra? I'd argue we don't get 60,000 going, to be fair, and those that go will tell you that, Paul. We don't get 60,000.
I know.
So, is the let's be kind. Is the extra 12,000 worth what we've lost? Is there a payoff there? Do you think?
It is a trade, isn't it? And it depends on the whole concept of enough in terms of what's the end result. Are we looking to compete with the big six?
Do you think that's the case now, Paul? Now looking back on it,
we could compete with them, or
do you think that stadium, or do you think we could compete with them?
I think we can compete with Spurs and Arsenal, as we've shown in the seasons before this, and we've been up there around the same area, and we've got a similar capacity. They've got more global reach, haven't they, which brings in the extra money. I'm just thinking in terms of how much the owners have got, to be honest, because quite frankly today it all comes back to that: how much are you worth? And Newcastle are going to be getting on that now, aren't they? So it's a case of, is enough to put us into that next bracket and allow us to compete for trophies, or is the enough to get the fans who really want to go in there? Which it could be, although how many have we still got on the season ticket waiting list?
None. It was a false waiting list.
Really?
Yep. Yeah. I'm going to pick you up though, because I don't feel like you've answered the question.
No, I haven't.
Is it? Do you now looking back? Now this is with hindsight.
I hear different things about the expansion though, in terms of we had planning permission, but wasn't it dependent on infrastructure elsewhere? Because Upton Park Stadium wouldn't have taken that many extra fans, and wasn't there work needed on that?
£1 million.
I don't know what I say. I'm not privy to club account.
Nigel was.
Yeah, no. No. So if West Ham to go to 44,000, we would have had to, as I believe Tottenham, I think were asked to contribute. They were clever because they managed to nick money off of Haringey to contribute to public transport upgrades, which at West Ham would have involved in paying towards an upgrade of the Upton Park train station, and the price put on it was, I believe, £1 million. But that was obviously negotiation never really went down the road. So I'd imagine West Ham could have negotiated that down rather than upwards.
Yeah, that's the cost of a Marco Boogers.
It's not. It wouldn't have been past the will of engineers to make the C2C train stop at Upton Park as well as West Ham on a match day. The platforms were already there. They were in a bad state. The platforms are still there at the C2C lines. They're still, because that was the old original train line that used to run. But the trains no longer stop. Obviously, they only stop at Barking and at West Ham. Now, they could have stopped at Upton Park if the platforms were rebuilt and made safe.
I'd say, I mean, it would have been progress, wouldn't it? We can definitely agree on that.
Yeah.
It would have been fucking great. That's what it would have been.
Yeah. Len, do you see? Have you seen any of the conversion theorists on Twitter this week? Have you seen any? No. I mean, there's an argument then, which I suppose would be better than what we got. That apparently it could be possible to rebuild the stadium internally. So you keep the exterior, but you then move the upper tier and the lower tier further forward. But it would have to be permanent.
Right.
I can't ever see that happening though.
It is pertinent to point out. I don't know if I was just talking to Sean.
Yeah.
Or what's happening in our group or whatever, but there has never ever been at any stage a proposal put in for any change to the stadium.
No.
So whatever these diagrams are getting shown, they're just someone's
they're
just no different than the kit design.
It's architects or people with an understanding of architecture,
right. As Adam is.
Yeah, having. It's a debate, I suppose.
It's not immediate future, is it? But isn't there talk about redevelopment of the Crystal Palace Athletic Stadium and
That
the
always
Athletics
gets thrown up.
moving back over there.
Yeah,
So,
there's a lot of. I know that Brady got picked up on the lie about that they wanted to. That's not the case. Sebco's adamant that they want the Stratfords to be the home of British Olympics. Adamant. And actually, I don't blame him. I know
no,
Paul
I
says
don't
he's an
blame him on that.
athletics fan. And I don't, it was
They
a
don't, it doesn't
stadium
seem
made
to
for
have had much
athletics.
of a legacy for athletics either,
Yeah.
though. So
Well,
that's why at the moment it's just an in-between case. It
yeah.
doesn't seem to be fulfilling
We
the
was
legacy
asked,
purpose for West Ham or athletics.
but we was asked originally under the Icelandics, do we want the stadium? And they said no.
Yeah.
So that's how we got into the position of here. But your mate's Golden Sullivan, Paul, would have said yes to anything.
Well,
I thought the Icelanders had initiated the.
no, there was talks, but once the figure of 100 to 120 million as a contribution to building the football and retractable seating, the possibly retractable seating that may have worked. Once that was put to West Ham, they deemed it no longer financial viable. You know, we're not going to give you 100 odd million. But the thing that always people seem to forget about the stadium is that when it was initially built, it was built in a certain way, and actually when the Conservatives came to power in 2010, they really scaled back on it. Credit crunch, and the Olympic Stadium actually lost a lot of funding for what it was going to be when it was built, and it sort of then went downhill from then, to be honest.
Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah. Next up is Dodsey.
Hello, my handsome.
Dodsey's a regular, Paul. He talked like this because he come from West Country. I don't know. They'll talk like that up York. You're Lancashire. Well, what are you, Cheshire, aren't you?
Cheshire, yeah.
Can't really do. See, I always thought Yorkshire talk by breathing in. My Lancashire talk through their nose and talking breathing out. I don't know what Cheshire do though, Paul. Cheshire's more Lancashire way though, isn't it?
Cheshire's a weird one because you're
Yeah.
in a space between Liverpool and Manchester.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I thought that was called Warrington.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they're called the Woolly-backs or something. I don't know. Dodsey goes, "Evening, Mr. Khan," and he spells it right, so he gets his question read out. He says, "How much of Ted Lasso have you all watched? It really is good."
None.
You watched it, Paul? Ted Lasso?
No, I've
No.
not.
Kills this question then, because he says he's Nate based on David Moyes' he's dislikes as well. Oh, he says, "Are you missing Sean?" And he said,
A little bit.
I've spoke to him today, so not as much as I thought I would. And with that in mind, Andy was still bleeding annoying me from Rome. What is the weirdest thing you miss from Upton Park? Dodsey says his is Gary from Oles, up his ladder. Always a great place to meet.
Yeah.
What do you miss? Do you miss anything from Upton Park?
Who, me?
Oh, yeah.
I fucking miss everything.
Yeah.
And I was pro move too.
Pick one thing.
Just the intimidating atmosphere at times when we needed it. Just the sort of, actually, just really that despite the Triggers broom analogy of 4 different, well, it wasn't. It was only 2 different. No, probably only 1 different stand for when I first went for the first time. It was still the same place that my dad took me to, and I don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
And that hurts a bit actually.
Can
For all the people that that can take their kids.
Would you go back there, Lynn?
Oh, in a heartbeat.
No, not to watch football. Would you go back there and look at the flats? And
Well, I have, and I.
yes, you have.
Yeah. That weren't great.
I mean, I drive past there 3 times a week on average.
Yeah.
Still.
I don't recommend anyone going back, actually.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't.
Have
know,
you been
actually.
back, Paul?
As I said at the start of this, the plan is to go and have a walk around at Easter and take the boy and show him some of the places we used to live. So I'm going to pop in the Bowlin, which has had a makeover.
Have a
hasn't it?
meal.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah.
It's lovely in there, it really is.
Yeah, I saw something about it being named one of the prettiest pubs in the country. So pretty wasn't really my association with it from West Ham days, but it always
Spent a
has
lot of
been
money
on
to
the
make it that
outside,
pretty.
hasn't it? Yeah. But yeah, interesting just to see what's become of the place. And
Yeah.
there's still elements around, like I pop in Ewan Bookshop as well. Things that
Yeah,
have
ask
been
them what
there
the
for
deal
ages.
is.
Yeah, take your book.
Yeah.
What do I miss from Upson Park? Blimey. Do you know? I must admit, I think I missed the walk because I think I missed the walk to the ground.
Missed, vendors outside as well.
Yeah,
I didn't think I'd miss them as much as I thought.
Yeah, turning
Real pubs.
the corner. What the thing with I think as well. The Barking Road is like a vein through my life.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, that's what it's like because it's weird because I grew up. My family were market traders at the bottom end, so I spent a lot of time walking up and down the Barking Road, and then going football as a kid. I had to walk up the Barking Road, and I did it. And my first jobs, my first job was a milk boy, funny enough, for Canning Town. My second job, and then my second actual real paid job were both on the Barking Road. So I would walk past the solicitor's office where I worked as a post boy, walk past the locksmith shop where I did most of my apprenticeship, and then up past where my mum's family had their shop on the corner of Inniskilling Road up by the Bowlin, where my mum grew up. So it's quite strange in a way. But yeah, I think I missed the walk. Though I do still drive there. And Dodsey then goes, how can West Ham announce tickets allocations for Australia 1 week ahead of the European tie in Belgium? As always, Len. Brady out!
Brady out.
Brady out, Paul.
I'm not a fan of Brady, but
Feel free to join in.
I try and see the best in people. And my thing for her is, Paul Pesky Salido, and I think it probably goes back to my dad's Fulham connections. Good, solid bloke. If he can put up with her, then there's got to be something.
Yeah, it's left and right, Paul. I think if I was Paul Pesky, that's all I'd play with. Anyway, Paul Sanders, the old Colonel's back. Here we go. As a long-time season ticket holder, rather like them, am giving up my season ticket. I've travelled from Oxfordshire for over 30 years, 12 as a season ticket holder, and I've threatened every year since the move I wouldn't renew. Only for the last 2 seasons to keep me on the hook. He says, finally, I've had enough of being treated like a customer, not a fan, and I'm giving up. Now his question is, which is good because it is question time, people. What do I do now on a Saturday? He says he's anticipating Saturday kickoffs in the Championship. Ha ha ha, we ain't going down, Paul. He says, I will still go a few times a season, it's in the blood. But I can't give the poison dwarf or the Tory business failure my season ticket money anymore. We'll listen every week though. What will he do? You got any ideas, Paul? What would you tell Paul? What should he do? What do you do?
Local non-league football.
There you go.
Get down and support them. Community clubs. Feel like a fan rather than a customer.
Yeah. Not Oxford United, Paul.
Got all the local teams around there.
Maybe Tame. maybe. I don't know what
It
part of
really
Oxford he is. Whitney, maybe. I don't know. That's a posh place, Whitney. I don't know. They've got a football club, but maybe. Everywhere's got a non-league football club.
Yep.
So you got. What do you? What about joining you, Len? What are you gonna do with your Saturdays when you're not gonna
Painting.
come with me?
Painting.
Painting, but you could do that on Sunday.
Yeah, every fucking day, mate, if I could.
Well, you could do. Yeah, you don't. You know, you don't really want to paint, do you?
Yeah. Do you know?
Not constantly, do you?
I would. Painting is a bit like the only way I can talk about painting to people who don't paint is if you've ever played Football Manager and realised it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you wondered where the time gone. It's a bit like that.
Oh, right.
So I kind of, yeah, I would happy to be a reclusive painter. I'd be very happy doing that. Listen, look, I love painting. People love me paintings. What more can you want? But I mean, I won't. All I feel like I'm going to be missing out on is the journey into town and have everything rubbed into my face. Paul Sanders. So I mean, I don't really. I can still fill it up with the same things rather than go down there. I could go down the pub, have a couple, and get back for 1 minute past 3. Watch it on the Woody box. Sounds like a dream to me.
Yeah.
So I don't really like all the build up before it anymore. I think that's contrived right up until the kickoff. They'll fit any bit of preaching or ideology in. I'm sick of all of that. So, I don't have to put up with that anymore. So, now I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I've definitely done a season too long. I mean, Father Chris can't go to the Newcastle game now. And the first thing I thought of is, I might not go. No, I'm actually looking forward to not going rather than going. Because that's how bad I think it is there. Because that's what,
No, it's funny because the Newcastle game clashes with me going to see Only Fools and Horses. Now,
Oh, yeah.
in the past,
Yeah. You'd have never done that.
no, I've done it where I've gone, elbowed, what was planned to go to the game, birthdays and other stuff like that. Even at the point I was working away once and drove back, watched the game and drove back to work. So yeah, but now it's like they've moved the Newcastle game to Only Fools and Horses. Oh well, there you go, I miss a game. So I get it, Paul. I get it. It ain't. I've become one of those fans I never thought I'd be, which is walking in at 5 past kick-off, whatever time they do it. Where before I had to be in my seat 15 minutes, half hour before kick-off, getting a program every game. Now I won't. I buy a program out of a charity shop when they go in there. I'm just not doing it. Not doing it anymore. They get the bare minimum out of me, but I have to go because it's a drug, unfortunately.
Very badly cut drug.
Yeah, it's not.
But
Yeah, it's not the it's not the
No.
best of
nah.
Right. We've had a couple more come in. He says, maybe not. Tom Devlin. He says, with the grief of getting travel to the away fixtures in Europe cost available, don't you think it'd be a good idea and a gesture by the club to charter an appropriate amount of flights so that fans don't have to panic buy anything they can get extortionate prices, therefore making the experience a lot less stressful, allowing to bring the enjoyment it should? Yeah, Tom, I don't know if you heard a couple of weeks ago, I pointed out we've got an official airline.
Yep.
Either Air. I believe they do own airplanes, even though I think they generally fly between here and Africa, there's a bit of me that thinks, well, couldn't we say to them, chuck us a couple of planes that we can take out? And I know the club, I think they did that for Palermo. The fans, it was done through Utopia Travel. So, but I know the club used to advertise it, so I don't know if it was private. It was run by a bloke called Kevin, who used to run Utopia Travel. So I don't know quite how far it would go. But I think it's bonkers that the club just leave you to your own devices. It would be easier to control as well with the ticketing. If you've got a ticket to the game, you can buy a flight. So if you've got a ticket to the game, you can pay 250 quid and get on this plane. And they've got control of it. Oh, I haven't given them an idea. Dear. Next.
Sensible idea, though.
Oh, no, yeah, there you go. That's me, Captain Sensible. Last up on Facebook is Grant Coxford. Another
Grant.
Oxfordshire amateur, the old carrot cruncher himself. You're not too late, mate. He said, would Nigel consider the championship winning trophy an actual trophy? Would he consider the championship? Well, yeah, I think I'd consider winning. I don't know, actually. I mean, as much as I celebrate the fact that we won the Division 2 trophy in 1981 with a record amount of points,
yeah,
and that we come up as champions in 1958, it's not something you stick around your stadium, is it?
No.
So, I think it's something to be celebrated, Grant. But I think it goes down on your honour sheet. Division 2 champions. It's not a major trophy, and I would rather win that than the playoffs. If I'm being brutally honest. The Losers' Cup, as I like to call it.
I'd agree with that. A great invention, the playoffs, and that day at Wembley or Cardiff, as it has been in the past, is obviously a good one. But yeah, it's far better to actually win the championship, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like the difference between the Premier League winning the actual thing and getting the Champions League place. It's obviously you want to win it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right in that it's not.
We need a bad day before that happens. We need a bad day, don't we? Really, so I don't really want to think that far ahead.
Well,
we need to get relegated before it happens.
All the fun of the fair, though, isn't it?
Depends what fair it is.
Yeah. All right. So someone's back because they've been writing. Sorry, I'm just looking through Twitter, but I have to wade through a lot of stadium chatter. My life. This is not good, isn't it? Oh no, that's not. He does ask a question. Here we go. Sean Loves Brady on Twitter. It says Sean Loves Brady. I'll have a look later. Oh, hold up. Sean Loves Brady he's following no one. There's no followers.
Oh, this is an account.
So, Sean Loves Brady on Twitter says, as one of my local employees, can Nigel email Dave Sullivan to chase up my Tesla charging point request at the London Stadium?
You know who this is.
Oh, right, in the bald parking area, of course. Brady for fake tax, Brady for fake taxi. Dear, oh dear, not even sure I'd watch that one, thanks. There you go, I fell for it. It's a parody. Well, I don't know what it is, but there you go. Next up, definitely not a parody. Is Dan 31 60 43 40?
Sure ain't.
March 27th. He's had to wait a while for this question. Does West Ham's answer to reach and he have anything on the FA investigation into the Roberto Pellegrini match fixing? Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I've seen that.
That was fantastic, wasn't it? Do you not think?
Fantastical.
I'll explain off air. It got better for me, to be honest.
Oh, did it?
Oh, yes.
Strange woman, isn't she?
Mate,
Starts the fight, fucking...
starts a fight,
Yeah.
Rates in me on DM and then
Yeah.
like blocks me.
Yeah.
So you think you can't reply, and then other people are sending me messages to actually show how mad she is.
Yeah.
So anyway, but he
Well,
has got.
I've suffered at the hands of her.
Oh right, okay, yeah. Well, you never know. I might see her on an away day. They're there at the front.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to wonder which of the three Cinderella. I mean, the old one's always the best ones. I know Paul likes to see the best in everyone. Paul, me and you are very different animals.
Takes all sorts.
Sorry, every time I look at him now, I'm going to be guessing. Oh dear. Question for Len: what will finish first, HS2 or Nigel's kitchen? That is slander, Dan. Brady out.
Brady out.
I'm telling you now, I'm determined to finish my kitchen for HS2. But we'll have an update because Easter weekend, apparently I'm really busy, though I will be at Fulham. The wife don't know yet. Mark Repole, Kevin. I don't think he's got the hang of it because he's got a question for Dodsey. But anyway, Dodsey is going to listen, so you can answer. As a frequent flyer on European away trips, can Dodsey rate his away day expeditions based on red light entertainment districts? He says, I am.
I think I might have started that one.
So Brady out.
Brady out.
Yeah, we'll put that to Dodsey because I'm pretty sure he can, Mark.
Put that in the away day roundup.
Yeah. we'll be asking him to tell us about the delights of Genk.
Yeah.
And thus endeth Facebook, Twitter question time for this week, and that's the end of the show, Paul.
You made it, Paul.
Well done.
Thanks for having me. You didn't go too hard on the Brady Sullivan stuff. I was expecting worse, quite frankly.
Oh, we couldn't give worse, Paul.
You haven't listened to the podcast then.
if you want,
Yeah.
we can do worse.
Where's the exit button?
I just think you probably because you've been a good sport, I think, for coming on. Because as you know, I did message you to tell you that actually, once I'd got into the book, I was like, oh my fucking god.
That's one of the reasons why I sent you a copy.
I appreciate that. So
hindsight is a wonderful thing, and we'll see where we stand in years to come.
Yes, look, it's one of them things where, and one thing I do say is, obviously, I don't know, I used to write in Overland and Sea at the same time that you started your blog, so I can look back from around 2011, 2012. And well, I started writing, I think, when Avram Grant became manager, so 2011. And I used to defend Avram, to be honest.
I was going to say good appointment, because I remember having an argument with a guy in the football team where I disagreed, wasn't a fan of Avram.
Oh, right. Well, I didn't think it was that bad an appointment on paper because It took Portsmouth to the cup final. Yes, he'd lost it, but Portsmouth were going down, so he'd done well. It took over at Chelsea halfway through the season and got them to the Champions League final, though Chelsea fans will have you believe it was John Terry that done that now. So I thought... There
was a bit of pedigree, wasn't there?
Yeah. And,
Cup pedigree, which is the type of team we felt we were.
And actually, the man, I think, won more cup games than he did in the league.
Yeah.
Which perhaps tells you all we need to know realistically. But hey ho, he is the worst now for me. But it is a good book, and it does tell. I think it tells the story well, in my opinion, from probably how I see it. A lot of fans fault, and then you can see your mind changes. Partly, I would say. You're probably not as you say. If you like to see the best in people, you've not come.
I try, but
you're probably a nice person, and you don't have the abject hatred in you that perhaps some of us have.
Yeah, I do see where it comes from, though.
Yeah.
I empathise.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. Hope you've enjoyed it, and let us know how you feel this week's propaganda. We are hoping to do more. I've got a couple of names in the act that I'll sit down with Len, and hopefully we'll get them over the line for you and see where we go. But until now, next week podcast back as usual, and
football's back.
And football's back. Yeah. Oh, football's back.
We never mentioned the football.
I totally forgot. Prediction: Southampton. Paul, you first. What we doing?
I'm going with an optimistic 2-0.
Win?
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Well, we're going on Moyes out. And,
yeah. Jay, what we doing?
I think, you remember the other, after that Brighton game, I said I think it's worse. I don't think we've hit the bottom. Sunday afternoon's the bottom.
All right.
We're losing.
Yeah, you think we'll lose Southampton?
And it's really going to kick off.
Okay.
Not literally in the ground.
All right. Well, it may do.
The tone of the fans, I think it's going to kick off.
All right. Well, as with the European game, Larnaca, I predicted that a 5-0 smashing. I won't go that far, but I will think a 3-0 tanking is on the cards, people.
You do?
I do. Southampton will get their asses kicked. We'll be sitting in 15th place come Sunday evening, and we'll be wondering what all the fuss is about.
Well, it's funny because this is how critical the game is for fan mood and carrying it right through the end of the season. Sunday's game is so critical.
Yes, 100%, undoubtedly, it's a must-win game. And
Absolutely.
I don't always, and you know me, I was like, well, there's always, but this is a must-win game. Not just because actually, even if we lose, we could still get out of it.
Yeah.
I just think the psychological
morale,
damage
that
will be done to
Yeah.
the fan base, towards the management and those that run the club and the players and everything else, it will fracture open badly.
Yeah.
And at least it will give Nick something to talk about, though. Anyway,
Yeah.
other than people saying the pubs. Until next time, thanks for listening, people, and we'll play you out.
Yay.
Getting to know you, having a good nose about you, having a gander, looking at what makes you tick.